us, we have David Maina, who is an expert on feed and fodder business development at AU-IBAR, that is the African Union Inter-African Bureau for Animal Resources. And of course, we also have Simon Kinuthia, who is the head of agribusiness at ABSA Kenya. They'll be speaking to us about how to mitigate the effects of El Nino to make sure that farmers don't suffer, the country doesn't suffer as far as livestock, feed, and fodder. I'll begin with asking David, perhaps, to just set the scene for us, because when I think El Nino, actually, no, to introduce yourself first, just briefly and tell us what you do. Yeah.
Hi, Mariam, and hi, Brian.
Hello.
Morning.
We're happy to be here. It feels very nice to discuss issues of fodder and agriculture in a station that feels young and funky. So thank
We're
you for...
young and funky and well-informed, as hopefully, after this interview.
Yeah, and gives a lot of hope that we can have the young generation also getting a lot of interest in the issues of fodder and agriculture in general. My name is David Maina, as you've said. Currently working on a project, Resilient African Feed and Fodder Systems at AUIBA. And let me tell you a bit of context with the background of where you're coming from. We are a fodder deficient region. And this is easily indicated by how drought stops our business here. If we can say, quote unquote, it stops reggae. When drought hits, we literally come down to our knees on livestock resources. If you've been very careful, you had reports of deaths of animals.
Yes.
You've had people displaced from their places, people having conflicts because they are fighting for water, fighting for pastures. Families getting disintegrated because there is drought.
Yeah.
In other places, we also hear lives lost. And before you hear life lost, there are many other people who have lost their nutritional body conditions. They have grown thinner. They are not able to continue with their daily duties because they don't have the energy they need, the nutrition they need. They can't do their duties. And eventually, for the extreme cases, we hear of deaths of people. So it's a very serious matter. And we have to be able to relate such a loss of life to the challenge of feed and fodder, because we are depending as a continent on animal resources as our food. So if you're able to relate that, then we can begin to have a discussion. So that kind of vulnerability is dangerous for a growing continent and for countries like Uganda, Kenya, where the largest part of the population is young people. We are still producing a lot of youth who are supposed to be fed, who are supposed to be healthy, who are supposed to go to work and build the nation. That's how we develop. Now, if you don't have food for them, what's the hope of this continent? That's a big question. And therefore, the reason we are here is to be able to ensure that we can now begin to speak accurately about the need for us to invest harder and put business solution. I'm happy to have Simon here. He's from the bank, and that really means that we mean business about fodder. So thank you very much. I think that's really creates a background of why we are here. Explains very well what the problem statement is, and I hope that we can discuss solutions, especially business. Thank you very much.
Simon, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about what you do.
Thank you, Mariam, Brian, and thank you, David, for setting the scene. Listeners, I must say the atmosphere here is lit.
Thank you.
It's happening now.
Thank you.
Yeah, so thank you very much. My name is Simon Kino. I head agribusiness segment at ABSA Bank, Kenya Limited. At ABSA, our purpose is empowering Africa's tomorrow together, one story at a time. And that's one of the reasons why we think that agribusiness is a key segment, and it's one that we are actually very keen to support. And we have a dedicated team that I lead that is looking after that. So at ABSA, we take a value chain approach, looking at all actors across all the value chains that we have. And that starts from input providers all the way to the commercial enterprises that are producing, to the aggregators, to the processors, and all the verticals that, happen, in those value chains. So we've anchored our strategy on 4 pillars, and the 4 pillars are access to information, and that's one of the reasons we're here, access to mentorship and coaching, access to markets, and access to sustainable finance. So with those, I think if I look at what David has done, and he's done a good job of setting the scene. When you think El Nino, you think about what's going to happen. I think you think about a lot of rain.
Yes.
Right. Now, I think rain is significant, yeah? And we know that agriculture in this country is mainly rain-fed.
Yeah.
And for us, I think the question is, what are we going to do differently this time round to ensure that how do we make use of this water that comes our way, right? So I think immediately rain harvesting, isn't it?
Yes.
And now taking it forward to what David is talking about, it's the old age agricultural economics challenge does show up, because it's the issue of demand and supply. And I think when you speak to Fodder, I think David is alluding to the fact that there will be a shortage of supply because that would not be readily available. And what happens is then the input costs go high because the farmers need the fodder to feed the cows during this period,
Yes.
and to ensure that they're producing. So I think as a bank, it's an important discussion that we need to have. And as financiers, we do come in to collaborate with various actors, like-minded people like David's and other consultants, to see what can we do in terms of enabling agribusinesses, that entrepreneurs that are actually doing a great job out there to really feed us. At APSA, we say we see they're great. We want to elevate it.
Okay.
Thank you.
We want to elevate it to the next level. We'll get exactly into the how and the what next for how to mitigate, for example, the effects of this coming El Nino in just a minute. We're getting back into the music with a little Jay Sean and Lil Wayne Down, and Cinco Lil mix with reggaeton lento.
I think the throwbacks are slapping a little bit differently, but stand by for a great conversation. It involves us because I've been told there's tech and how it's going to help agribusiness. So it's something cool and funky. Better join in using the hashtag Morning Fix.